Okay, thank you, Purnima. Just stay with us, please. Brinda Adege is with us right now. Brinda Adege is, of course, a acclaimed activist. Brinda, thank you for joining us this morning on CNN News 18. Brinda, a lyricist in the South, making it very clear that she doesn't want to see hypocrisy from the DMK government in Tamil Nadu. What is your reaction?
I am in complete agreement with her, because when Stalin, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, is supporting the women wrestlers and they are quite far away from home, how can he not support women who have complained against Vairamuthu? Just because he is in close proximity with the DMK group, it doesn't mean he can be absolved of the crimes that he has committed against women. And this is harassment, sexual harassment, because he's in a position of power, because he is also closer to the powers that be, that he is getting away. And it is time for Mr. Stalin to take not only a moral step forward strongly, but also ensure that the police are directed to register cases against this person, against Vairamuthu. Only then will we all understand and believe that he is standing up for women's rights.
Chief Minister MK Stalin has extended his support to the wrestlers right here in the capital. Remember, we're talking right now about the wrestlers who over the last few days have very publicly, this is a protest that started in January, but have very publicly voiced that they want the arrest of the Wrestling Federation President Brij Bhushan. Now, in light of that development, a Tamil singer, this is Chinmayi Sripada, she's tweeted to the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister in a tweet that calls out his perceived hypocrisy. She's essentially said that he and the government needs to take action against a lyricist, Vairamuthu. Remember, these are not in any way low-profile claims. The singer came out very publicly about 4 years ago and made these claims in the midst of the Me Too movement. She had claimed in the years after that she had faced a shadow ban within the industry. She had made complaints against two different people within the industry. One, of course, is Vairamuthu, we've just talked about, and the other was another prominent individual in the Tamil film industry, Radha Ravi. Now, Chinmayi had come out in support of women who'd accused Radha Ravi of sexual misconduct also. It's in all of these regards that she's asked for more action. Now, we'll take a look at all of this in just a second. We will have my colleague Purnima join us in just a second to bring us more context. Remember, Chinmayi Sripada had back in the early parts, so about 4 years ago, she'd alleged that her membership from the South Indian Cine Television Artists and Dubbing Artists Union, so the SICTDAU, she'd said that it was axed just weeks after she came out in support of the women who'd named the actor-politician Radha Ravi, who was the president of that union, in the Me Too movement. Now, just a little while after that, she'd also made claims against the lyricist Vairamuthu. She'd said that he was a sexual harasser, and she'd actually detailed an incident she had with him in Switzerland. Now, according to Chinmayi, in 2018, she was expelled from this union. Soon after, she voiced support for two women and made this claim against Vairamuthu. That very much continued. However, Chinmayi says that she continued to give solidarity to these survivors. However, that came at the cost of her career. She has, in the last few years, claimed that she's lost many dubbing gigs, many work opportunities, where she's dropped last minute because she believes she voiced support for these women. She says that I know that calls were made. Now, she has continued to some degree to dub for Telugu movies, but it's in Tamil films that she has faced a large problem. Now, all of this obviously comes in the context of the Chief Minister, MK Stalin, making a very, very high-profile statement in support of the wrestlers in Delhi. You'll remember that the WFI Federation President Brij Bhushan has made a statement very recently where he has, of course, denied these charges. He had said that he'd hang himself if any of the charges were proved true. But you've had a number of wrestlers led by 3 medalists at an international level who have been protesting against the WFI president. They've said that the WFI president engaged in sexual harassment of them. They've also said that sexual harassment was also done of a minor, and they continue to demand that he be removed as the WFI president in an immediate arrest. They've also said...
Hello everyone, we have a very interesting and a special newsmaker today. He is known as an infrastructure trailblazer, because he is the face and the idea and the mind behind the web of roads and
Namaskar and a very warm welcome. You're watching Vantage with me, Akanksha Swaroop. Lawmakers across the world are considering drastic measures to control their sinking economies, but India remains the fastest growing major economy. We'll deep dive into what's working for the Indian economy and the challenges ahead. And not all's well between UAE and the United States. The Gulf state is frustrated with US. We'll tell you why. This as Beijing too is pushing Washington's buttons. The latest is China's snub to a US invite. Is this the dragon's way of negotiating from a position of strength? Tonight, we'll find out. Also on the show, China is digging a 10,000-meter hole into the earth. What for? Deep earth exploration. We'll bring you a report. Nepal and India have held bilateral talks today. And tennis star Novak Djokovic is in hot water again. We'll tell you why. I'm Akanksha Swaroop, filling in for Palki Sharma. Let's get started with the headlines first. Russia says it has foiled Ukraine's invasion attempt. Moscow claims to have thwarted a bid by Kiev to infiltrate its southwestern Belgorod region. Russia says it used jets and artillery to repel the attacks and prevent Ukrainian troops from crossing over. US, Japan and the Philippines kick off their first ever joint Coast Guard drills. The aim is to bolster maritime cooperation to counter China. The week-long exercises will be held in the disputed South China Sea, which Beijing claims almost entirely. India's Home Minister issues stern warning in violence-hit Manipur. Amit Shah asks people to surrender guns or face action. The deadly ethnic clashes in the northeastern state of India have left at least 70 people dead. Executions in Iran have been the highest in May since 2015. Tehran has executed over 300 people this year, over 140 in May alone. Iran has stepped up capital punishment ever since the anti-hijab protests erupted in September last year. And Australian mining giant BHP says it underpaid its employees for 13 years. Over 28,000 staff also received less holiday than they were entitled to. The mining giant blames it on errors and says it will cost the company over $250 million. BHP is the world's biggest miner. The verdict is out. You may have seen the headlines. There's a global slowdown. But India remains the fastest growing major economy. Between January and March, the Indian economy grew at 6.1%. That's better than expectations. Just look at how the rest of the world is doing. Europe's largest economy, Germany, is in a recession. The world's largest economy, the US, seems to have dodged a default. But growth still remains sluggish. There's grim news from the UK too. Inflation is rising at record pace. There's a cost of living crisis. Lawmakers are considering drastic measures, including price controls. That's how bad things are. So leading countries are dragging down global growth. But India is able to weather the storm. How? What's working for the Indian economy? And what are the challenges ahead? Yes, India is faring much better than the rest. The challenge is to maintain this growth. After all, India is not completely isolated from global headwinds. What are the risks ahead? Tonight, we'll bring you a 360-degree assessment. Let's start with what's working for India. There are 4 key drivers of growth: manufacturing, construction, agriculture, and financial services. These sectors are fueling India's growth. All 4 have seen an expansion, a fall in oil and food prices. This has helped the manufacturing sector. Government spending has boosted construction, and there's a greater demand for financial services. Again, a sign of healthy economic activity. What about the future? Can India sustain this level of growth? Well, at the moment, it's difficult to predict, especially when we talk about a large and complex economy like India. But we'll try. Early signals are looking good. there are few things working in India's favour. Car, steel and power consumption was up in April. That's a positive sign. It points towards improving economic activity and sustained growth. So, we can expect manufacturing to do well. Forecasts for the monsoon season are also looking good. Experts say there'll be a normal monsoon this year. So, the agriculture sector has a reason to cheer. After all, it accounts for 14% of India's economy, but is also responsible for 42% of employment. That's why India's farms are so crucial for the Indian economy. We hope they have a good harvest this season. Now let's look at the big picture. How will the rest of the year pan out? So far, it's looking good. The full year growth estimate has been revised. Earlier, it was 7%. Now, it's 7.2%. But there are risks too. The Indian economy is not completely immune to global challenges. We've touched on this briefly in the past too. The global picture is looking grim. Germany's recession is putting pressure on Europe. In America, the US Central Bank isn't ruling out a mild recession. China was supposed to be on a recovery path, but it is stuttering. Countries like Singapore are reporting a contraction too. So how do these developments impact India? For starters, exports from India might fall. In fact, it's happening already. I have some data. Merchandise exports have shrunk by 3.7%. In April this year, goods contracted further by 12.7%. What explains this downturn? When there's a slowdown, it affects consumer spending. People like you and I, we tend to shop less. There's less demand, so exports will fall. That's how a global slowdown will affect India. There are some domestic challenges too, like the weakness in private consumption. What's that? We're talking about purchases made by households. They remain sluggish. It grew by just 2.8% in the last quarter, so there's scope to improve. For now, this doesn't affect the broad trend. To conclude with, the Indian economy is on a positive growth path. It is rising as the new economic powerhouse. The challenge now is to sustain that growth. There's bad news for the United States in West Asia, or should I say, more bad news. This time, courtesy the United Arab Emirates. Here's what they've done. The UAE has pulled back from a US-led maritime coalition. It's called the CMF, or the Combined Maritime Forces. Some background first. The CMF is a coalition of 38 nations. Its job is to tackle maritime threats in the Red Sea and the Gulf. Things like smuggling and piracy, but unofficially, it's also meant to counter Iran. The UAE says it withdrew from the CMF 2 months ago, but the CMF website still mentions the UAE. So it's not clear what the situation is, whether the UAE has pulled out from the coalition or just the operations. Either way, it's a big blow to the US. The question is, what led to it? Well, the US media is floating a theory. Here's what the Wall Street Journal reported on Tuesday. It blames the recent tanker seizures by Iran. 2 oil tankers were seized in the last 2 months. The Wall Street Journal says the UAE was not happy with the US response. They wanted something tougher. Could that be a reason behind this withdrawal? Possible. But the UAE has tried to downplay it. They say the Wall Street Journal report is a mischaracterization. Perhaps it is. But the broader story here is not about tankers. It's about the downward spiral in UAE-US relations. 2 major factors have contributed to it. One is the lack of trust in America's security guarantees. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. We are also seeing what's happening in Ukraine. US guarantees are not bulletproof anymore. The UAE had first-hand experience of that. Let me tell you what happened last year. In January 2022, Houthi drones struck an oil facility in Abu Dhabi. 2 Indians were killed in that strike. Afterwards, the UAE boosted its air defense. It decided to keep F-16 jets in the air at all times. And that meant mid-air refueling, which was done by the US. But guess what happened later? US officials demanded payments for the refueling. Basically, they sent a bill. Reports say the UAE leadership felt insulted. After all, allies don't pay for defense missions. Anyway, that's one reason. America is waning strength as a security guarantor. The second reason is linked to the first. Like most countries, the UAE is looking to diversify. It has built relations with China and Russia. In October last year, the UAE's president, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, met Vladimir Putin in Russia. He has also refused to condemn the Ukraine war. So the UAE is looking out for partners. China is another one. The UAE is using Huawei to roll out their 5G network. Most Western nations have banned it, but not the UAE. Reports say they are also building a port with China. It's located close to Abu Dhabi. Construction had been halted in 2021 after the US raised concerns. But looks like it's back on. That's what America's Discord leaks say. US spy agencies spotted new construction at the Chinese facility. This was around December last year. So all in all, things are not looking good for the US. Donald Trump began US disengagement from West Asia. Joe Biden has continued it. Perhaps it's a popular policy back home. But in West Asia, it has been counterproductive. Traditional US allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are looking elsewhere. They realize China has the appetite and the money. The UAE's bilateral trade with China is around $64 billion annually. But what's it with the US? Just around $23 billion. So financially, it makes sense. Like most Gulf countries, the UAE is also diversifying away from oil. And that requires investment and technology. Just so happens China can give both. Does that mean it's game over for US? Well, not so fast. Military alliances and cooperation are not built overnight. US weapons still form the backbone of the UAE's arsenal. It has bought American weapons worth $20 billion in the last decade. It is also home to one of the largest F-16 fleets. All that equipment will need parts and servicing. So this is not a relationship that can be discarded overnight, but it's a trajectory that will worry Washington. Like all relations, diplomatic ones don't disappear overnight. They die by 1,000 cuts. The UAE's most recent move is one such cut. But US President Joe Biden's troubles don't end at West Asia. China, too, is testing his administration's patience. Key leaders seem frustrated. They're now expressing their anger in public. Like the US Secretary of State, yesterday he slammed China.
It's clearly in the interest of both countries. The most dangerous thing is not to communicate and, as a result, to have a misunderstanding, a miscommunication.
So what is Blinken talking about? This encounter in South China Sea. We told you about it yesterday. A Chinese jet buzzed American spy plane last week. Look at how close that fighter was. The American plane's cockpit was shaking. Blinken called China's actions dangerous.
Chinese pilot took dangerous action in approaching the plane very, very closely. There have been a series of these actions directed not just at us, but at other countries in recent months.
He's clearly unhappy. One American newspaper described those comments as scolding. What's fueling this? China's decision to rebuff America. US wants to resume dialogue with China. They want to keep lines of communication open. But the Chinese refuse to play ball. This week, they had a chance. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is visiting Asia. He reached out to his Chinese counterpart. They were supposed to cross paths in Singapore at a security summit. Perfect opportunity to sit down and break the ice. But Beijing refused. They rejected America's invite. Austin himself wasn't pleased. He has now issued a warning. Austin says the situation could go out of hand.
I'm concerned about, at some point, having an incident that could very, very quickly spiral out of control. But again, I would welcome any opportunity to engage with leadership. I think defense departments should be talking to each other on a routine basis, or should have open channels for communication.
Obviously, he's talking about what happened in the South China Sea. And he's right. Any mid-air confrontation raises the risk of conflict. It has happened before in 2001, again in the South China Sea. A Chinese fighter and a US spy plane collided. The Chinese plane crashed, its pilot was killed. The US plane was crippled. It landed in China. The incident led to a standoff. China did not release the US aircrew. For 11 days, there was considerable back and forth and a lot of blame game too. China demanded a formal apology from the United States. It didn't get one. Instead, US said it had regretted the incident. There was no formal admission of guilt, and the American crew was released. That's how the standoff ended. What would happen if the same nightmare were to repeat? It will not be the same. A lot has changed. China now has a much bigger economy, and its military has undergone sweeping modernization. In terms of pure numbers, China has the world's largest navy. So the PLA won't shy away from a fight. Xi Jinping on repeated occasions has asked his troops to prepare for war. This week, he asked them to improve their readiness. The Chinese president met his top national security officials. He asked them to think about the worst-case scenarios and prepare. I have his statements with me. Listen to this. He says the complexity and difficulty of the national security issues we now face have increased significantly. We must adhere to bottom-line thinking and worst-case scenario thinking and get ready to undergo the major tests of high winds and rough waves and even perilous stormy seas. And so that message came with specific instructions. Xi Jinping wanted his officials to speed up the modernization of China's national security system, even enhance capabilities. He also asked for improvements to internet oversight. How would America see this? Xi Jinping is not showing any interest in diplomacy. Instead, he has prioritized strengthening his military. Perhaps the Chinese president wants to negotiate from a position of strength. But under present circumstances, there are no signs that a dialogue will resume. Maybe America will respond again by bolstering its own defenses. And that only raises the specter of conflict. Now, have you heard the saying, don't dig a hole for yourself? Well, guess who hasn't? China. Because Beijing is digging a hole. It's not just any other hole. It will be over 32,800 feet deep into the Earth's crust. China calls it a part of its exploration efforts. The drilling began in the Xinjiang region on Tuesday. But what is Beijing planning to find? Our next report tells you all about it.
China is drilling into the Earth's crust, digging a 32,808 feet hole. Once done, it'll be the country's deepest ever borehole. The drilling is happening in the Tarim Basin, located in China's oil-rich Xinjiang region. But why is Beijing digging such a deep hole? The answer is scientific exploration. China wants to study the areas of the planet, ones that lie deep below the Earth's surface. In 2021, Chinese President Xi Jinping talked about deep Earth exploration, pushing for advancement in this field. This expedition is a step towards that. Not just that, it'll help China unearth rich minerals and even energy resources. On top of that, it could also help evaluate risks of disasters, like earthquakes or even volcanic eruptions. So, how exactly do you drill a hole this deep into the Earth? According to Chinese media, the drill has a design depth of 11,100 meters. That is over 36,000 feet. So it'll drill into the ground, penetrating over 10 continental strata, which is basically layers of rock. What the drilling aims to reach is the Cretaceous system, rocks that date back 145 million years. Now, the drilling process is not without its own challenges. There's a harsh environment on the ground. Once you go deeper, the conditions worsen. The further you go down, the higher the temperature gets. Sometimes it even gets too hot to go any further. But this isn't the first time this is being done. In fact, this isn't even the deepest hole that's being dug. That honor lies with Russia's Kola super deep borehole. That one was dug over a period of 20 years. The drilling process began around 1970. It reached a depth of 40,230 feet in 1989. But work on that borehole stopped in 1992. That's because temperatures touched 180 degrees Celsius. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, the project soon shut down 3 years later. Not just that, the United States and Germany too attempted to do the same. The US began Project Mohole in the early 1960s, but it was soon called off due to skyrocketing costs. Germany too attempted to pull off the impossible in 1990. Even that project was soon shut down. So, will China be successful where others have failed? Only time will tell.
It's day 2 of the Nepalese Prime Minister's visit to India. As they say, it was a moving day. Prime Minister Prachand met Prime Minister Modi today. They held extensive talks on a number of issues: the border, trade, transit, power generation, cultural exchanges. Everything was on the table. Like I said yesterday, this visit is all about resetting ties. So has that been achieved? From the looks of it, yes. Both leaders inaugurated a new railway line. It connects India to Nepal. They also announced new hydroelectricity projects and pipelines. A major power trade deal was also announced. India will buy 10,000 megawatts of power from Nepal in the next 10 years. There's more good news. Nepal has received permission to export power to Bangladesh. You see, Nepal and Bangladesh don't share a border, so they need India's grid to trade electricity. Today, New Delhi granted that permission. Nepal has also been given access to India's inland waterways. Again, this is very important. Nepal is a landlocked country, so access to waterways is a cornerstone of their economic policy. Those were the important announcements after the meeting. Listen in to the Indian Prime Minister describe the trajectory of India-Nepal ties.
2014 में कार्यभार संभालने के 3 महीने के भीतर मैंने नेपाल की अपनी पहली यात्रा की थी। उस समय मैंने भारत नेपाल संबंधों के लिए एक हीट फार्मूला HIT दिया था। हाईवेज, आईवेज और ट्रांसवेज। आज 9 साल बाद मुझे कहते हुए खुशी है कि हमारी पार्टनरशिप वाकई में हिट है।
This was the good bit. But what about the differences? India-Nepal ties have been strained recently by border issues. Nepal's former Prime Minister, KP Sharma Oli, unilaterally claimed Indian territories. Were those issues discussed today? Yes, they were. But the tone was encouraging. The Nepalese Prime Minister called for a resolution based on bilateral channels. Prime Minister Modi also promised to resolve all border issues. Listen in.
हम सभी मुद्दों का, चाहे बाउंड्री का हो या कोई और विषय, सभी का समाधान करेंगे।
Prime Minister Modi ji and I discussed the boundary matter. I urge Prime Minister Modi ji to resolve the boundary matter through the established bilateral diplomatic mechanism.
Another contentious issue is that of the Gorkhas. They are Nepalese recruits who serve in the Indian Army. It's a long-standing practice from the colonial days, almost 200 years old. But recently, Nepal halted the recruitment. Why so? Because of India's Agnipath scheme. New Delhi decided to limit the number of permanent commissions in the military. This angered Nepal, so they decided to halt the recruitment. Prachand was expected to take up this issue with Prime Minister Modi. He was expected to push for better terms. But did he? India says no. The issue of the Agniveer scheme and Gorkhas was not discussed. So the thrust of today's meeting was clear. Focus on the positives, build on the deliverables, and minimize the differences, which is good news for India-Nepal relations. Recently, China has been making inroads into Nepal. There was even speculation of Kathmandu picking Beijing over New Delhi. In that context, this visit is important. Prachand appreciated Prime Minister Modi for his neighbourhood first policy. He also praised India's presidency of the G20 and the SCO. The good news is New Delhi is not taking this relationship for granted. It's not falling back on just cultural and historical links. it's looking forward as well. Now let's look at another one of India's neighbours, Pakistan. There are whispers of a conspiracy afoot, a way for the government to solidify its grip on power. There are rumours of a scheme involving Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party leaders. It's called Minus Imran. Now the name is a dead giveaway. It sounds like a way to sideline the former Prime Minister, and it already seems underway. This is Fawad Chaudhry, Pakistan's former Minister for Information and Broadcasting. He was once a staunch Imran Khan loyalist, but he recently quit the party, allegedly over the violent protests that rocked the nation on 9th May. Remember, violence had erupted during the protests. People even burnt down Pakistani military buildings. The Pakistani regime says Imran Khan orchestrated these attacks. Fawad Chaudhry and several other leaders quit the PTI after the protests. Chaudhry was supposed to be taking a break from politics, but it seems he's had a change of heart. Yesterday, he went to visit a former colleague who's currently in jail, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Pakistan's former foreign minister, the vice chairman of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party, and Imran Khan's right-hand man. This is what Chaudhry told reporters after the visit.
We met Shah Mahmood Qureshi a little while ago. We held detailed talks with him. Our belief is that Pakistan needs to move towards a strong future. We need to bring forth and move towards solutions, and we will bring about solutions.
He then said that the 250 million people of Pakistan could not be left at the mercy of the ruling regime. It sounds like a plot to get Qureshi to defect, to abandon Imran Khan. But Khan may have seen this coming. Around a week ago, the PTI chief had earlier declared Qureshi as his replacement. This was in case he was arrested or disqualified by the Pakistani authorities. It's a move that could stop Qureshi from defecting. And it seems to have worked. Qureshi's son tweeted this video last night after the meeting. That tweet says, "We stand with the ideology of Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan." Khan released an address to the nation yesterday. He claimed the government was targeting him and his party candidates.
खास तौर पे जो कि टिकट होल्डर्स हैं, अब ये टिकट होल्डर्स के पीछे पड़े हुए हैं कि किसी तरह उनको पीटीआई से दूर करें, और कई कर चुके हैं। कईयों ने कहा जी वही जो हाथ खड़ा करके जी हम तो पाकिस्तानी फौज के साथ हैं, हम तो 8-9 मई को बड़ी उसकी मजम्मत करते हैं और हम पार्टी छोड़ रहे हैं, सब कुछ माफ हो जाता है उनका। उनमें से ऐसे भी हैं जो कि अब लॉबी कर रहे हैं कि लोगों को किसी तरह पीटीआई के टिकट होल्डर्स को तोड़ के तो कोई एक नया ड्रामा बन रहा है किंग्स पार्टी का।
Khan says a new political outfit is in the works. He called it a king's party. It's a jibe at Pakistan's checkered political past. This tactic was used in the early 2000s. Back then, it was the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz that was crippled. Military ruler Pervez Musharraf allegedly asked PMLN leaders to reinvent the party. Senior leaders defected and created the PMLQ. It was basically former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's party minus Nawaz Sharif. The PMLQ party won the 2002 elections reportedly with Musharraf's blessing. That's why the PMLQ was referred to as the King's Party. Now Imran Khan says a new King's Party is in the works. He claims that parliamentary seats in the next elections will be divided between the new King's Party and the current ruling coalition. And he's implying that this new party will basically be the PTI minus Imran Khan. Khan has been trying to prevent this. He has been asking to negotiate with the government, but Islamabad has refused so far. The regime says it won't talk to Khan unless he takes responsibility for the May 9 protests and apologizes for the violence. Of course, that kind of admission would delegitimize the former Prime Minister, making him easier to sideline. Will this really happen? Will history repeat itself in Pakistan? It looks like it's heading that way. We'll keep you updated on this as the story develops. And we now move to Japan. Hope you remember the devastating earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan in 2011. It continues to haunt not just Japan, but its neighbors too. This time, the scare is over nuclear wastewater. In 2011, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant was destroyed by a massive tsunami. 3 reactors of that nuclear plant suffered a meltdown. And over the years, the plant operators' woes have gone from bad to worse. It now has over 1 million metric tons of nuclear wastewater on its hands. And now it needs to dispose of this water on an urgent basis. Just because the Fukushima nuclear plant is running out of storage space. But where will this water be disposed of? In the Pacific Ocean. That's what's led to a major controversy. Also, a PR crisis for Japan. Our next report tells you all about it.
This is how the streets of Tokyo looked on May 16th. These are people protesting against Japan's planned discharge of nuclear wastewater into the ocean. And it's not just people in Japan who are protesting. Entire countries have their fears regarding Japan's water dumping plans. Like South Korea, China, and various nations in the Pacific Ocean. Because it's the Pacific Ocean where all the nuclear wastewater will be dumped. About 1 million metric tons of it. Japan announced its plans to release the wastewater in 2021. The release is expected to begin in the next few months, notwithstanding opposition to the move. Japan's nuclear regulators are going to conduct safety checks at a newly constructed water discharge facility. And Tokyo will also wait for a final report by the International Atomic Energy Agency before releasing the water. The report is expected to come out later this month. An IAEA team is already in Japan. In the next 5 days, they'll conduct a review. The team has experts from 11 countries, but they are not the only ones scrutinizing this. Last month, a team of 20 South Korean experts visited Japan. They inspected various facilities at the Fukushima nuclear plant. In South Korea, the popular opinion is weighed against Japan's plan. According to surveys, 85% of South Koreans oppose the move. What about experts? They are still on the fence.
We have made meaningful progress in the scientific and technical review process through on-site inspection and securing detailed data. But additional analysis and confirmation work is needed for a more accurate conclusion. Since our country is the closest country related to the Fukushima water release, we are reviewing whether Japan's water release plan is appropriate from a scientific and technical perspective.
Japan argues that the water is absolutely safe for discharge and that it will have no impact on the environment or aquatic life. In fact, Japan says the water is safe to drink. It has been treated through the Advanced Liquid Processing System, or ALPS. This process removes 62 radioactive materials. That might sound like a lot, but it's not enough. An isotope of hydrogen, tritium, can't be removed with the ALPS process. And this is an isotope that has the potential to alter DNA. But Japan has a plan, a possible workaround to the tritium problem. The ALPS-treated water will be diluted with seawater. The dilution will reduce tritium levels and make the water safe to consume. Japan doesn't really have an option other than getting rid of the wastewater. Remember, there is 1 million metric tons of it. The Fukushima nuclear plant already has more than 1,000 tanks. They're completely full, and space for more water is running out. Couple that with the fact that release could take decades. This is indeed a predicament for Tokyo. Perhaps that's why Pacific nations, including South Korea, are now softening their stand. But while the governments may relent, the people aren't convinced that the water is safe.
Novak Djokovic has landed in hot water. The usual, I guess. He's playing the French Open in Paris, but back home, there's trouble. The conflict between his country, Serbia, and Kosovo has flared up again. We'll discuss the conflict in detail, but first, let's focus on Djokovic. He played his first round match on Monday. After winning, he wrote something on the camera. This is what it says. Kosovo is the heart of Serbia. Stop the violence. No prizes for guessing which side he's on. Djokovic is criticizing the government in Kosovo, but he's ruffled some feathers in France too. Here's what the French sports minister said. It was a message that is very activist, that is very political. You shouldn't get involved, especially in the current circumstances, and it shouldn't happen again. So France says, stop the messages. But Djokovic is not interested. In fact, he has doubled down. Listen to this.
I don't mind saying that. I mean, I would say it again, but I don't need to because you have my quotes if you want to reflect on that. I mean, of course, I'm aware that a lot of people will disagree, but it is what it is. It's something that I stand for. So that's all. Drama-free Grand Slam. I don't think it can happen for me.
Kosovo wants action against Djokovic. It wants the International Olympic Committee to discipline him. But here's the problem. The Grand Slam rulebook doesn't prohibit political messages. Players can speak on controversial issues, which means Djokovic cannot be punished. Now let's focus on the conflict in Kosovo. So what's that all about? Kosovo was once a province of Serbia. It declared independence in 2008. Around 99 countries, including the United States and the UK, recognized it. The rest do not. Even India does not recognize Kosovo. The current conflict is centuries old, and it's rooted in emotions and demography. Around 92% of Kosovo's population is Albanian. They reject Serbian control. They say Kosovo is their own country. Only 6% of the population is Serbian. Most of them live in the north, close to the Serbian border. That's where the clashes broke out. Serbia considers Kosovo to be the heart of its statehood and religion. It is home to many Serb Orthodox monasteries. That's what Djokovic wrote as well. Kosovo is the heart of Serbia. But the truth is, the vast majority of people in Kosovo disagree. In fact, in 1998, they rebelled to get rid of Serbian rule. Serbia responded with a brutal crackdown. That's when NATO intervened and bombed Serbia. Since then, a NATO contingent is stationed there. So now you know what the conflict is all about. But why the sudden flare-up? Well, last month, local elections were held in northern Kosovo. The Serbs boycotted it. So naturally, the Albanian candidates won. They tried moving into local offices with police help, but the Serbs blocked them. Tear gas was fired and clashes broke out. It's a very complicated and divisive issue. Not for Djokovic, of course. Like most Serbs, he firmly opposes Kosovo. I won't say I'm surprised. Djokovic is known for his overt political messaging. Remember his vaccine drama? Djokovic refused to take the COVID-19 vaccine in the year 2022. Yet, he turned up in Melbourne to play the Australian Open. Now, Australia's laws made vaccination mandatory. So Djokovic was deported from the country. My point is, controversies are not new for Djokovic, whether it's destroying rackets on court, hitting balls at line umpires, or commenting on highly political issues. In this case, the law supports Djokovic. He cannot be stopped from making political statements at the French Open. Nonetheless, let's focus on what he said. Stop the violence. Is there any chance of that happening? Leaders from Kosovo and Serbia are in Moldova today. They're attending a diplomatic summit. Needless to say, they traded blame.
The situation in Kosovo, in north of Kosovo as we speak, is quite tense, although it has been more quiet in the past 2 days. And it's caused because President Vučić of Serbia is inciting, politically supporting, as well as financially supporting illegal structures that have turned into criminal gangs.
Serbia will do its best and its utmost to de-escalate the situation, which means that we'll attempt to persuade Serbs to protest calmly and peacefully. Of course, they are very determined, they are very decisive.
Both Serbia and Kosovo are led by nationalists, so chances of a long-term resolution seem unlikely. But an end to the recent flare-up would be welcome. No thanks to Djokovic, of course. And now let's talk about something else that always courts controversy. Amazon, the house of horrors brought to you by Jeff Bezos. The e-commerce giant's employees are angry once again. Workers descended upon the company's Seattle headquarters. They were up in arms yet again. So what were they angry about this time? A lot, actually. A diverse bunch of problems brought the workers out. First, there's Amazon's return to office mandate. The firm is being quite inflexible about it. It's causing a lot of resentment among the staff. Second, there's Amazon's recent firing spree. The company has laid off about 27,000 workers. The ones still left are not pleased. And third is climate change. Amazon recently backtracked on its climate commitments, and the employees are not taking it lying down. All these issues merged at the Seattle protest. Here's more. This is the Amazon headquarters in Seattle. And this is what was happening around it yesterday. The people you see are Amazon workers. They have decided to stage a walkout.
Future's in our hands. Future's in our hands.
And it was to send a message to the firm. Well, actually to send multiple messages. The workers are protesting a variety of issues. The first is the return of work from office.
As tech workers, we were told many times during the pandemic that we were doing our best work, that our productivity was high as it's ever been. We made so much money. And I'm not naive that the shift to remote work will take some adjustments within Amazon, but the benefits far outweigh those adjustments.
Today, we're here because a lot of Amazonians feel in their gut that something is not right with the company. And there are a lot of signs of this, such as a rigid, one-size-fits-all return to office mandate.
That's not the only issue, though. There's also Amazon's recent firing spree. The company has laid off about 27,000 workers in the last few months. It has also got people riled up. They're protesting the callous nature of the company. They're fighting back against the diktats from management.
So far, the options that seem to be given are do what you're told or quit. And that's why we're here, because I'm not going to quit and I'm not going to do this.
Protests over both these issues are quite understandable. The work from office mandate and the rampant layoffs affect employees directly. But the Amazon Seattle protesters also have another cause, an even bigger, more holistic reason to march. They're protesting to protect the environment.
Amazon's carbon emissions have increased 40% since the climate pledge was first announced. And that's while severely undercounting and underreporting the emission numbers.
The climate pledge she's talking about refers to Amazon's promise to cut emissions. Amazon had earlier said it would make all shipments net zero for carbon emissions by 2030. That was always going to be tough. Remember, every Amazon delivery uses a lot of fossil fuels. Planes, trucks and vans move packages all over the world. That means the company has a massive carbon footprint. It will take a complete overhaul to change that. And Amazon is not willing to walk the talk. So instead, it has shifted the goalposts. It has vowed to deploy 100,000 electric delivery vehicles by 2030. It still plans to go carbon neutral eventually. But now the deadline is 2040. And as we've seen, this isn't set in stone. Amazon's employees aren't having it, any of it. Neither the climate catastrophe nor management's mandates.
Sound the alarm!
I'm out here because I refuse to just sit idly by while mandates are dictated from above down that don't make sense and hurt the planet, hurt families and individual lives, and just to get us into a seat at the office for their tax incentives. I am not here for it.
So looks like Amazon's bubble of troubles is only set to grow. With that, I bring you Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Starting with Ukraine, part of a Russian missile landed on a busy road in Kiev. In the United States, a car launched into air after hitting a tow truck ramp in Georgia. We'll show you a body cam footage of this incident. In Peru, 11 people have been injured in the traditional bullfighting festival. Here's a disclaimer, these visuals might be disturbing for some viewers. And finally, what makes June 1st significant? Taking you back in history, on this day in 1984, Operation Blue Star began in India. It was launched by then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The aim was to capture a Sikh militant and his supporters who had taken shelter. This at the Golden Temple in the Indian state of Punjab. As a fallout of this operation, Indira Gandhi was assassinated later in 1984. We leave you with this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Second EMS immediate roll. Previous 1050, 84.
Wow. Qué suerte. Corran, corran, chicos, chicos.
Six hours.
So, Mr. Gadkari, you know, the way you are talking about it, it clearly shows that this is almost like your passion project. जिसके बारे में लेट बाल ठाकरे बोलते थे आपको रोड करी instead of गडकरी. तो, you know, just looking at the data here, under your leadership, an unprecedented number of 53,953 kilometers of road length has been added from that period of 2013-14 to March last year. March this year, in fact. This is a whopping 59%. Is this something that you call as your success, or will you be saying that there are new milestones for you?
No. I never have any satisfaction about it. We need to do more. At the same time, we have 7 world record. That is to be great pride for the country that under the leadership of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, my ministry, with the help of all the stakeholders, particularly we have 7 world record. Now, actually, as far as the performance is concerned, people are very much satisfied about it. But my dream is to make at least 25,000 kilometers more roads in this period. That was my individual target. Still, we are trying. That NHI is making 6,000 kilometers per year. My target given to NHI is now 10,000 kilometers per year. And this is the way we are developing different type of models. BOT, PPP, hybrid annuity, then EPC, then InvIT model, by which we don't have money problem. Fortunately, the budget from the finance minister is very good. At the same time, 2,70,000 crore. At the same time, we are monetizing the roads, and that is the reason that we don't have problem. Now the second phase is, we are not only satisfied about the length of the road, but now we are making the logistic park of 2 lakh crore. We are making ropeway, cable car, funicular railway. We have 260 proposals costing 1,30,000 crores. Then we are planning to develop bus ports. And at the same time, for a city like Bangalore, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, where our idea is to develop public transport system on electricity, like Skybus. We want to develop electric highway from Delhi to Jaipur. We are working on that. And at the same time, we are now trying to develop with a new model electric buses in the country.
Yes, talking about electric buses, you know, because EVs have been your dream project. We saw you driving a electric car only recently. How feasible are these in terms of achievements? How soon can we see it?
Actually, it is already, the waiting list is there. If you want to purchase it.
A very warm welcome. You're watching Breaking on News 18. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Let's dive into the segment. We're getting in some breaking inputs from the state of Uttar Pradesh. We're now learning that Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has directed officials to conduct a survey of people living in illegal slums across the entire state of UP. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has further directed that a campaign will also be launched to identify the anti-social elements, including Rohingyas hidden there, as well as the mafia and government employees setting up those slums on government land. Remember, the state of Uttar Pradesh has been battling with these illegal settlements taking place on government land, and now, after cracking the whip on the mafias in the state, the Yogi government is very serious about cracking the whip on these illegal settlements in the state of Uttar Pradesh. It seems that this will perhaps just be a starting point to address a larger issue of those government employees and those illegal immigrants, which also includes the Rohingyas, who are scattered across these illegal settlements. On that note, let's also bring you a ground report by our reporter Amit Singh.
इस वक्त हम मौजूद हैं डालीबाग के एक स्लम में और उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री योगी आदित्यनाथ के आदेश पर जिला प्रशासन और पुलिस यहां पर एक सर्वे करवा रहा है। दरअसल बांग्लादेशी, रोहिंग्या और तमाम जो दूसरे अपराधी होते हैं वो कहीं इस तरीके के स्लम में छिपे ना हो और जो स्लम में रहते हैं उनका आइडेंटिफिकेशन हो पाए, इस वजह से यहाँ पर सर्वे कराया जा रहा है। तस्वीरें हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं, देखिए यहाँ पर तस्वीरें, देखिए यहाँ पर बाकायदे यहाँ पर जो फॉर्म है वो फॉर्म देखिए यहाँ पर है, इसको भरा जा रहा है। बेसिकली जो कोई रोहिंग्या, कोई बांग्लादेशी, कोई दूसरे राज्यों से आकर इलीगल तरीके से इस तरीके के स्लम्स में ना रह रहा हो, इस बारे में पता लगाया जा रहा है। सबसे पहले तो बताइएगा कि क्या क्या आप पूछ रहे हैं इन लोगों से?
देखिए, पहला हमारा मेन उद्देश्य है पहले तो इनका नाम हम लोग मैं देख रहे हैं कि नाम इनका क्या है, इनके पति का नाम क्या है। इनका मेन हम लोग आधार चेक कर रहे हैं कि आधार इनका यहाँ का है या कहाँ का है। अगर बाहर का है तो ये यहाँ से क्यों आए हैं, और अगर यहाँ का है तो इन्हें कब अपडेट कराया है। और तीसरा चीज़ इनका ये है, अगर यहाँ का है और इनका इतनी आवास योजना हम लोग की चल रही है तो इन्हें अभी तक क्यों नहीं आवेदन किया है। अगर इनका ऑलरेडी आवेदन हो रखा है, आवास मिला हुआ है, तो यहाँ भाई क्यों रह रहे हो।
All right, our correspondent Amit Kumar Singh, who brought us that report, also joins me on the phone line. Amit, अगर देखा जाए तो ये योगी जी का जो पायलट प्रोजेक्ट है, ये महज एक जरिया होगा, ना कि सिर्फ इलीगल इमिग्रेंट्स, चाहे वो रोहिंग्याज हो, बांग्लादेशीज हो, उन पे क्रैकडाउन करने के लिए, पर ऑल्सो उन गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स पे जो इनको ये लैंड प्रोवाइड करा रहे हैं, वो भी गवर्नमेंट लैंड पे।
Yeah, definitely. Recently, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has chaired a high-level meeting, and in that meeting, Yogi Adityanath asked his officials that what they are doing to crack down the small mafias, the street crimes. They doesn't have that kind of answer. And recently, the Chief Minister office have ordered this survey and asked all the officials of the Lucknow, the district administration and the police officials to go to the slums and do survey and find out that how many Bangladeshis, how many Rohingyas, and how many people who are living in this kind of miserable condition, and why they are not getting the government schemes, government housing schemes. For this survey is going. Initially, this is a pilot project, and it has been done now in Lucknow, but later it will be done in other parts of Uttar Pradesh also and other districts also. Basically, the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath asked his officials that they are taking action against the big mafias like Mukhtar Ansari and Atiq Ahmed and IS-227. But what about the small crimes? What about the small mafias? What about the street crimes? So, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath asked the official to identify the people who are staying there in the slums and why they are staying in the miserable condition and why they are not getting the government housing schemes, and well, how many Bangladeshis and Rohingyas are staying in that kind of condition.
It's also interesting to read, Amit, that Yogi Adityanath has also ordered that there will be construction of high-rise buildings on the properties of such mafias who are promoting such kind of illegal settlements.
Definitely, how they are getting the government properties, how these slums are built up in the government properties. In this survey, this will also come, and on the government properties where this slums, where these people are staying at that place only, the high-rise building will be made by through the government official by government housing schemes, and these people who are living there from the other parts of the state, whether they are from Azamgarh, Gazipur, or from Bundelkhand area, they will get, if they are beneficiaries for getting the government housing scheme, they will definitely get.
Many thanks to you, Amit Kumar Singh, for bringing in all those details. And with that, let's quickly shift attention over to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. We are now learning that Jammu and Kashmir's DGP Dilbag Singh has chaired a high-level security review of the Kashmir Zone senior police officers and reviewed security and deployment arrangements for the Amarnath Yatra. And during the meet, the DGP ordered the officers to make elaborate security arrangements to ensure a secure and peaceful conduct of the Amarnath Yatra. Remember, the Amarnath Yatra is all set to take off on 1st of July this year and will conclude on 31st of August. The registration is already on, and this is a very significant time. We're already seeing images of the snow shriveling, in fact, appear. But having said that, the security review meeting has now been chaired by the DGP of Jammu and Kashmir. What has emerged out of this meet is very significant to note. Dilbag Singh has in fact issued very crystal clear instructions. He's also complimented the Jammu and Kashmir police and security forces for ensuring foolproof security during the G20 that took place. Let me quickly bring in our correspondent Ishan Vani, who's joining me on the phone line. Ishan, at a time when the Union Territory has in fact successfully managed to conduct the G20, one of the biggest international events, it also goes on to indicate the preparedness of the security forces of Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, yes, and that is the take forward for the security forces in terms of trying to show the same synergy when it comes to Amarnath Yatra. That will be the next major event that is going to unfold, and the security arrangements around Amarnath Yatra are every year high. And the same directions have been passed by the Dilbag Singh, who has directly told them that the arrangements and security and peaceful conduct of Yatra should be done in the same manner as it was done last year. He has also said that the deployments and the distribution of manpower needs to be synchronized at several levels for the conduct of Yatra. Because remember, we have seen in the past that several militant outfits have threatened the Yatra, and that is when the massive security arrangements are done, particularly on the routes where the Yatris go through. He has also said that there should be an adequate deployment at the vulnerable places, and also if there are any gaps, those need to be fulfilled, should be done. Because now 1 month is left. 1st July next month will be the day when Amarnath Yatra will begin. It also goes through some sensitive areas, and that's why there's a need for ROPs. And also he has also emphasized the focus that there is a need for road opening parties and other people who need to be ready to deal with any kind of situation.
All right, many thanks to you, Shanwani, for bringing in the latest from the Union Territory. And with that, let's now shift focus over to the state of Manipur. A prolonged violent clash between two ethnic groups, the Kukis and Meteis, has now led to widespread violence, death and displacement in the northeastern Indian state. Even by conservative estimates, about 80 people have lost their lives. Over 40,000 have been displaced from their homes. The Home Minister, in a crucial 3-day visit, held various crucial meetings. The Union Home Minister, Amit Shah, did not mince words to warn the armed groups any violation from 2008 SOO peace agreement shall lead to centre withdrawing from the peace deal. That was the stern warning coming from the Union Home Minister. Here's a special report by CNN News 18's Arunima. Let's have a quick look.
After days of violence in Manipur, there came hope. Union Home Minister Amit Shah reached Imphal when the state was burning. The administration was in the dock and the trust between the communities was in tatters. The 3-day whirlwind. This visit aimed at applying a much-needed balm on the wounded state. 50-plus meeting with the civil society members, sport persons, retired bureaucrats, women groups in Imphal. Churachandpur and More met with complaints, but also showed optimism. The Maitis in Imphal demanded NRC and strict action to ensure territorial integrity. The Kuki-dominated hill districts called for President's rule. The Home Minister heard both the sides and sought 15 days of peace to implement various steps in order to maintain law and order.
भारत सरकार विगत एक महीने से चलती हुई हिंसा होने के कारण और हिंसा में किसकी जिम्मेदारी है, इस सभी की जांच के लिए हाई कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस स्तर के रिटायर्ड न्यायाधीश का न्यायिक आयोग गठित कर जांच करेगा.
The Home Minister's message was two-pronged. Security forces were told to show no mercy to the lawbreakers, and those violating the ceasefire agreement were given a stern warning. Steps were also announced to help the state come out of this crisis. The centre has announced 10 lakh each to families of those who have lost their lives. Immediate supply of about 30,000 tons of rice. Adequate supply of gas cylinders, petrol and vegetables. Temporary railway stations to be made functional, helicopter service from hill districts at nominal cost, and additional medical teams on the ground. The centre also announced a new police chief, appointing Rajiv Singh for the top post. The government is keeping its fingers crossed, hoping the state starts limping back to normalcy.
And with that, we are getting in breaking inputs from Manipur. Chief Minister of Manipur, N. Biren Singh, has spoken exclusively with CNN News18 amidst allegations against him that he acts only towards a certain community. The Chief Minister has said that Manipur is a state consisting of 35 tribes, including Mete, Kuki, Naga and many more, and that he works for all communities and not just one. Finally, Chief Minister Biren Singh now coming out in his